Hey y'all, it's another beautiful day in the city. It's going to be nice and warm today, nice and sunny after a rainy day yesterday and this morning. So I thought, let me come out into the garden and do some chores. I'm a little bit behind on some things. A couple of things that are going on out here in the garden. I am working on expanding the garden, which is why you see this marking paint here. There is another video I have loading for that. But also, I shared previously how I repurposed this bench to use as a potting bench closer to the house and out of the elements, as well as starting my seeds for the spring and the summer garden. Now, I've never been successful at starting seeds indoors. I tried it last year and did well initially, but then we had the big freeze in February and I pretty much lost everything because I don't use grow lights. I was using sunlight that is very bright in my office and lamps, but then the power went out, so grow lights wouldn't have helped me anyway. So last year, very few of the seeds that I started indoors actually fared well. So I decided I'm going to try it again this year just to see if I can make this happen. And I realized something. Um, this year I started in these little trays. I created some makeshift seed starting trays, and these are basically are to-go containers from our anniversary. I saved them because I thought these would make great, excellent little greenhouses. And they really do. Like everything that I planted, every seed that I started in these little makeshift greenhouses sprouted in no time flat. But then, of course, they started to get leggy. These are my tomatoes. I planted in here some beefsteaks, some cherry tomatoes, a rainbow blend from Sherry, the okra lady, and then I just marked on the top. I don't know if you can see that, but I marked on the top what I had planted and where. So basically, I planted a whole bunch of seeds in here using my seed starting mix, which was basically just a mixture of a good quality potting soil and seedling starting mix, and that's pretty much it. Then, as they started to come up, I realized, I probably should separate these out. So that's what I'm doing today. I have another one over here that I recently started. Like, this is cabbage, and I literally just started those not even a week ago, and they sprouted like in no time flat using this same concept of the takeout trays and their tops, like as a greenhouse, an aluminum greenhouse. So I'm going to separate all of those today so that they have room to grow. I didn't do this last year. You can see one of my cherry tomatoes is struggling right there. Can you see that? It's struggling, but I'm gonna give it a try anyway. I put about I put 8 cherry tomatoes in here, 5 here and 3 across this side. And out of the 8, I think 6 made it. Yeah, 6 made it. So I'm just separating them out. Here's one that I've already watered down, watered in, and I actually planted it deeper because tomatoes do really well when you see. So this was, you can see here how long the tomatoes were. They were getting really leggy. So that's how tall it was. So as I'm transplanting them into another container, which by the way, these containers are from store-bought cherry tomatoes, and they are perfect because they already have holes in the bottom. Can you see? They already have holes in the bottom, so there's good drainage. And tomatoes do well when you bury them down even further than just their root system, because these little hairs that are on here, the little hairs will actually root out. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm just burying them a little bit deeper than they already were so they won't be so leggy, and giving them a little bit more space. I will not pot these up again because the next time I do anything with them, they will be going out into the garden. So I'm just going to give these a good water. I love to repurpose things in the house and in the garden. This is one of the reasons that I love being a sustainability blogger, because I get to show how just ordinary everyday things can be very, very useful. Things that we would normally toss out or recycle, like toss into recycle, can be reused for other things. Look at that. This is the perfect little vessel for my seeds because it's draining on its own. Like, I didn't have to drill any holes into this or anything. I just plopped in my seedlings, and they're really leggy. They're kind of struggling, honestly, a little bit, but I believe that this is going to help them this year. So these little containers, love them because I can just write. I have it written on here in purple. You can't really see it that great, but I know it's a cherry tomato container, and I have cherry tomatoes planted in it. Again, same thing with this one. It's, a cherry tomato. I have 3 in there, and it's a cherry tomato container, and I have cherry tomatoes planted in here. Perfect. So I'm going to continue doing this. I planted in my original container here. Let me see if I can show you that. I planted in my original container. Like I said, I had 5 cherries here, 3 cherries here. Of the 8, 6 germinated. And then I planted 5 beefsteaks. Only 1 did its thing. And then these are rainbow blend tomatoes. The fun thing about these rainbow blends is that you don't know what you're gonna get. I got those to do my single seed challenge 2021 last year, and the reason I did it is because, number one, I didn't know what I was gonna get out of those tomatoes. It could be any kind. It could be a black beauty, it could be a beefsteak, it could be anything. So that's why I chose that as my single seed challenge last year. It actually didn't do anything. You see, I write on these store-bought containers what kind of planting I have in here. And I'm going to use this one for the rainbow. I'm going to go with dirt first. So anyway, back to my story. My rainbow tomatoes didn't do exceptionally well last year, mainly because, again, of the weather. Started it inside, and in March I brought it outside after frost, but who knew that we were going to have frost like the way we did last year? Who knew that we were going to have a just incredible freeze, first of all, and then to think that things that should not be growing in the summertime were still growing because the weather was just bizarre. So my rainbow tomato last year did not even start doing anything until maybe like midsummer. I am going to just use some of the dirt from when I started these seeds right back in here. And who knows, maybe those seeds that didn't germinate will actually do something now that I've potted this up. And again, I'm burying my tomato deeper than it was in the original container so that these little hairs on the side, and this one's struggling too, but we're gonna hope that this does well, but these little hairs will create more and more roots. So I'm covering them up in the hope that I get a nice healthy non-leggy tomato out of it. And hopefully it happens sooner than it did last year because, like I said, they didn't do anything. I was just on the verge of pulling it up, and then it started to flower, and I thought, this is really bizarre. So this time, I'm just going to try to give it a better head start. I'm still learning in the garden, you guys. Like, the best thing, I think as a designer, it's easy for me to design a great kitchen garden, which is why I added that offering to my business. But that part for me seems really easy because it's all about location. It's all about knowing your yard and where you get the best sunlight. And if you're in a very hot climate like I am here in Houston, zone 9A, some claim zone 9B, but I'm in zone 9A, I think. Um, it's about where you get the best sunlight, but also at what time of the day. Sunlight in the evening for us is really, really harsh during the summer months. It's very, very hot, and a lot of veggies that normally love the heat can't really make it here in Houston because it just gets too hot. And if they're in full sun all day, morning, afternoon, and evening, a lot of those veggies just will not make it. It's way too harsh for them. Um, so the biggest thing about planning out your garden is, like I said, knowing knowing your microclimates in your yard. So this time, like I said, I'm trying to get a head start because even though like my cucumbers do well, we have pest problems, or you know, the tomatoes might do well, but again, pest problems, squashes, pest problems. So the design part really I love because I'm really great at that. But I'm really still learning about how to plant and plant effectively so that I get a good harvest. So, you guys, today has just been all about potting up these seedlings that came up indoors. I'm watering them really well, and I'm going to use these domes that I used to start everything. I'm going to use that now as the tray to hold these. It'll be like this. Just put as many as I can in there so that I can water from the bottom up. So that's today's adventure. I hope that you guys are having a great start to your spring or summer garden. And if you have not, if you're not starting, if you're afraid to start, I have a series of videos on my In the Garden with Nick playlist that you can take a look at to get started. Gardening is fun. It's great exercise, and for me, it is a form of self-care and a form of paying homage to my ancestors because this is what they did. This is how we ate from as far back as I know. My grandparents, my great grandparents, their parents, and yes, I did get an opportunity to meet my great grandparents and my great grandfather's father. So it is an absolute joy for me to do this, even when things don't go as planned in the garden, even when, you know, I don't get a great harvest. It still feels great to just channel my ancestry. And it feels great to show my kids, and now I have a grandson. It feels great to show him, to have him come here and be out in the garden and love the feel of the grass and touch the vegetables. And it feels great to see my son, my 12-year-old, come out and pick things and pick tomatoes and just eat them right off the plant. It's nothing like it. So anyway, you guys, if you're interested in gardening, check out my playlist. I'm still a newbie. I'm learning a lot as we go along. There's some things that I feel like I can do really well. Other things that I'm like, oh, I need to learn some more about that. And we're learning every day. That's the purpose of life, right? So anyway, gonna get going on my cabbages next. You now know what the process looks like, so don't need to show you that. So here's a look at everything that I got done today. So going down the line, I did up pot my banana peppers and my tomatoes. Did not upplant the eggplant, although I probably do need to do that. I planted out some of my kale into its own pot. I have some in the garden that never stopped growing from last year, which is absolutely amazing to me. And the others I just left to go a little while longer, probably until the beginning of March. I did plant some bunching onions. I'm going to try to grow those inside. If not, they will come back outside. And then I kind of did something different. I veered off on my cabbage. So, as you can see, I planted my cabbage in these biodegradable egg cartons, and I did 2 seeds per cell. What I did was I decided to keep 1 cell and up pot that. So that's what that is, and I'm going to let that one keep going for a couple of more weeks. But then I took several others and I'm doing an experiment. I went ahead and, even though they're small, I went ahead and planted those out into the garden because the almanac said so. And even though they're small, I'm just gonna see what they do. I'm gonna keep an eye on them, and then I'll keep these going for the next couple of weeks. And if I need to pot those, I will. My goal really is to do a garden chore every day or do something in the garden every day because it makes me feel good and because, we really do have lots of things to tend to out in the garden. But for today, I'm just going to get it all done and pray that we have a much better season this year than we did this time last year. So until next time, you guys, bye. Happy gardening.